So I'm going to experiment with a few different methods for chinking. This right here, you saw me prepare, it's clay, which was pure clay that I had a different part of the property, mixed with ash from the wood stove. So that's going to be oak and maple and some yellow birch, coals basically, like charcoal, ash, and some moss and grass mixed in here to hold it together. It's kind of like an adobe, like a cob, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I think it's definitely going to stick together, but there's different ways of mixing it, different components you can mix into this. So you can have clay, salt, and lime, or basically ash. You can mix it with grass or not. The grass helps hold it together, but if you don't have that in there and you put something like salt and lime instead, it basically turns to a hard concrete. So you don't need that grass to hold together and stop it from cracking. But because of the time of year and the fact that I can't probably get a lot of that clay anymore, I'm going to try a few different methods to extend it. Maybe do something more like a traditional mortar on the outside, chinking, or the outside gaps in the logs, and then on the inside do this clay, more traditional method. Or I'll do one wall one way and another wall another way. So a few different ways. This is sort of an experimental cabin. I'm not doing anything to jeopardize the cabin, but I'm certainly willing to try some different things that I can modify over time if I need to. So I gotta kind of play around with this, practice mixing it, getting used to the consistency. I've got 3 or 4 good days of above freezing temperatures. Still not ideal. This would have been much better to do in the summer or fall. But here I am doing it now, so I got to do what best I can at this time of year and see what I can learn from this. I can always redo it, chip it out, and redo sections of it in the summer. So I probably will end up having to do that in some spots, but won't know till I try it. The other thing is, it would have been a lot easier to mix with my feet. Just put it on that tarp in there, which is what I had planned. Kind of stomp on it and squish it all around. More, again, of a traditional method. This is a lot harder. You wouldn't believe how strenuous this is to mix by this method. That's a nice consistency though. Come into the light. This little grouse is not much of a meal, but I often don't actually do anything for food during the day when I'm busy concentrating on getting something done. As much as I cook those huge meals quite often for breakfast and dinner, there's lots of meals that I skip too because I'm just focused on what I'm doing and I don't want to stop to do anything like cook something up. I should actually just prepare some simpler meals in the morning that I can just eat like a sandwich, but I don't mind skipping a few meals, keep my weight under control, and keep me hungry, keep me motivated to get something for dinner. So here's my little grouse. A little pan, and little breast of grouse, ruffed grouse. That was just a little, I think it must have been fish coating that I had in that bag. So salt, pepper, and flour basically. It smells good. If you've never had grouse, it's better than chicken. It's one of my favorite all-time meals of any kind, wild or domestic. A little bit of salt. Better when it's fried up in butter. That's my favorite way to do it. Or completely plucked and then roasted on a stick over a fire. That's awesome too. So I'm just gonna eat this really quickly and then get back up. Try to get the top part of this chinking done before the sun goes down. I lose my heat. This is more like stone masonry than log cabin building, which is actually good because I have so many stone projects planned for 2018. I'm going to be doing tons of this type of stuff, so I'm really looking forward to it. I've always wanted to do stonework, and you can't put a shovel in the ground here, like stones everywhere. These little ones as well as these kind of boulders and all the way up to massive boulders and bedrock. So the entire ground is that and then a little bit of soil on top. So I'll have no problem collecting enough stones, but first project I think is going to be like in the spring as soon as the ground thaws. It's going to be a kitchen, an outdoor kitchen somewhere in this area here. So stone, full stone walls probably, and top, like countertop, and then a grill fashioned into that, so like barbecue type thing, and then a pizza oven out of clay, so I'll have to put a roof on it. It's part of why I've been collecting all the clay. So that's the first stone project, and a root cellar, smokehouse and things like that, foundation probably for a woodshed, so tons of stonework. So that's really gonna be cool. So this is hard on my wrists right now because I'm not used to doing this type of work, but I'll get used to it pretty quickly. I'm sure. So this is, I have one more day of warm weather after today. And then like it's December 3rd today or 4th, so that'll be it. I might get the odd day over freezing, but at night it's going to be freezing for sure. And there'll be so much snow on the ground that it's still going to be cold. So what I'm doing here, I can't get this outside wall done before that happens. So I'm going to have to leave it like this for the winter. I'll chink just the inside with clay. But out here, what I want to do is make sure I get done today is all the way around the cabin, at least the top, or at least the bottom 2 layers, I want to have chinked with a hard material like this clay mortar mixture so that I can keep the mice out. Mice out that would go directly under the floor. If they get up through here, at least they'll be on top of the floor. And I'll have to seal the floor well so they can't get in underneath. So you see how warm it is. December 5th today. You've seen the last couple of weeks where we've had lots of snow on the ground and some cold temperatures. Now we have a couple of days of warm spell. Well, I've actually had, what, 5 days. So I've been concentrating on chinking, something that I can do only in warm weather so that it sets up before it freezes. This wind is the cold front moving in fast. The waves on the lake were crazy. And it's like 7 degrees Celsius as you see right now, but it's going down to below 0 later today, so below freezing, and then some squalls are going to come off Georgian Bay and blanket the ground in snow again. So I've got maybe 4, 5, 6 hours of warm temperatures to get a couple of things done. I didn't get the chinking done. I'm not too concerned about it. I can still do the internal chinking, but there's one thing I do want, and that's get rid of this mud in front of the door here. The only way I'm going to do that is to get a deck built, and I can't get a deck built if the ground's frozen. So like I said, I've got a few hours, so I'm going to get a log, a cedar log buried in the ground right here, or half submerged in the ground, so that I can build posts on top of that to build a porch roof and then put a deck on here. Ground is actually still semi-frozen in a couple spots here, but I can dig through that, get a nice level spot, get that cedar log down on the ground, and then I can come back at the deck later over the next few weeks, or even in the middle of the winter I could build the porch roof and the walls and everything. But like I said, short window of opportunity. It's really dark out today, might get more rain yet, but lucky to have warm weather like this in early December where the ground's actually visible. So I better get going here. Oh, nice. Well, this is the last of the rain, I'm sure, for this year. Get this in, get a couple of flat areas coming out this way to put the support studs for the deck, and then let the ground freeze. Let it. That's how far I want the porch to come out. It's about 8 feet. Almost sunshine. some of you noticed on the last video that I changed the way the door swings. It changed it so it's hinged on the outside, swinging out. So one of the reasons for that is I found out from a neighbor, the closest neighbor, that there's some poachers in the area, and you wouldn't be surprised if they stopped by and checked out the cabin. Haven't seen anybody back here yet, and I've got trail cameras, and there was snow on the ground, so no tracks. But in case it happens, it is more secure if it opened out, just for the simple fact that you can't bust it in. It's easier to bust the door in than it is to pry one out. So that'll be trimmed solid on the inside, so you can't bust it in. And then the other reason, and the reason I did that swinging in to begin with, is that there's more of a concern for snow load up against the door than there is for security or bears. People keep mentioning bears, but black bears don't typically bust a door in, because that door doesn't look any different than a window, for example. Why not go in through a window instead of a door? So that's more typical. So I'm not too concerned about bears, and people I wasn't concerned about until I heard that as well. But the other reason is room. It's a small cabin, as you know, and has to be extremely efficiently laid out inside, and that includes inside the door. So you do want to have the width of this door swinging in of free space so that you can go in and out comfortably and take your boots off and let the second or third person in. And you don't have to step right inside on that side, so it's okay if the door swings out. I'll show you why. So that you can do things like this. So firewood stacked it right inside the door, which I did always want to do. I thought I would have more room with the door swinging open, but swinging in. But it's not quite the case. So if this door was swinging in still, we'll be hitting this pile of wood, so I couldn't have that there. I'd have to just pile a couple horizontal this way, which wouldn't be as efficient. I couldn't put as much in here. So I am going to leave the door on the outside. I'm going to probably stack firewood here quite often. Leave enough room for boots to come off and dry by the fire, and then have clothing hanging above it here. So I do prefer this. Like I said, the thing I'm going to have to pay attention to and be a little bit concerned about is snow. Now I'm building this porch right here. That's roof is going to come out 8 feet, so that's going to stop snow from coming in this way. But of course it can still blow in, and wind patterns tend to curl snow around corners, so we might get a build up here too for that reason. I'll keep about a foot of space between the sill plate and the deck, and also I'm here most of the time, so it's not like the snow is going to accumulate suddenly overnight while I'm in there and I can't get the door open. And even if that was to happen, I could probably push it, because if it's typically when we get a depth of snow, it is lighter snow because it's cold, and you can push that open. Now the other option is I can go out through one of the windows if necessary. That and that window are operating, and they're high enough above the ground that they're going to be above the snowpack for the most part, and I'll keep those clear anyway. So that's why I'm changing the door to swinging out. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to that today, but I'm going to try to change this door out completely. Actually, I've built a new one. This door is glued 2x6s, and because of the temperature and the fact that this wood was still a little bit green, and I didn't get the back support cross braces on before I put it up, it started to warp already. So I'm going to take this door off. I'll fasten some braces to it, and I'm either going to use it as a door for the woodshed or as a table. I kind of like it as a table actually, so that might happen sooner than later. So if that door doesn't go on today, it'll be on the next day or two, and it'll go into the next video, minus the real decorative part of it that's going on the outside, which I'm going to reveal in the next week or two. Alright, so still got these warm temperatures. I better get this deck on. Didn't sound good. Bad wind. A huge tree just fell over just beyond that. Not sure exactly where. I could hear it cracking, then I heard it hit the ground. what people were talking about, removing trees from around the cabin. High strong winds like this, even though that's not typical. That one now does make me nervous. That's nice. Temperature's dropping though. The sun's nice. So this is sand and gravel mix, all of this in here. So it drains really well. And then underneath it's rock, big boulders and bedrock. But I am going to need sort of a trough on the outside, a swale, to divert the water that comes off the higher ground and down that pathway. Keep the water out from under here and just keep shoveling it off and making sure the roof overhangs the deck a decent amount. On the ground to dig in. There goes another tree falling over. Wicked. I lost my table. I put it outside. Now I thought I would have one built by now. You know, I watched a program a few years ago, and I don't know what it is now. 2 or 3 years ago, it was on Netflix, and it was basically about gut bacteria and how we've destroyed our beneficial gut bacteria through the use of antibiotics, but also through a poor diet of processed foods, you know, white flour, white sugar, and all that kind of stuff, and lack of fiber in particular. So he experimented with the diet, and don't quote me exactly, I think it took 2 to 3 weeks only to get his gut bacteria back to a completely healthy state, and improved his health overall immensely. I took that program to heart. I made a lot of changes to my diet, including adding a lot of fiber back into it. That's why that breakfast frittata has a whole bunch of different things, a whole bunch of different vegetables and proteins in it, to increase the fiber in particular. In addition to a high fiber diet, I also eat fermented foods every day of some kind. So there's the sourdough bread, which is fermented grains, made with fermented grains. but I really like kombucha and kimchi in particular. Kimchi is put these mushrooms on. Kimchi is fermented vegetables. It's a Korean dish. Correct me if I'm wrong, like the frittata that I thought was Spanish. Many people told me it was Italian, not Spanish, so I stand corrected on that. Apologize to the Italians. But I'm pretty sure it's, well, no, it's South Korean. Kimchi is South Korean. So it's often made with, usually made with Napa cabbage or cabbage, green cabbage, and seafood of some sort in there. So it might be shrimp or seafood sauce or something, like seafood oil, like fish oil or something. I like to make it that way too, and I add a lot of hot spices as well, hot peppers, which is typical, which is I think traditional. So I really love that stuff. I kind of get addicted to it and I need to eat it every day. And I haven't seriously been sick in at least 2 years since I started doing that, including even colds or flus that my daughters would have. They'd bring it home from school and I'd get a little slight touch of it and then completely eradicate it almost immediately without getting the full symptoms. So I really attribute that to clean living, healthy living, and diet in particular. So I've got mushrooms here, leeks, and another strip loin steak. Probably don't have many of those left now. You know, I hate frying good steak, good meat of any kind. But because I'm just so busy working, don't have time to get a fire started out there and get coals made, so just cooking it in the frying pan again. A very glamorous eating spot. All right, one more week of construction zone, and I have to get something built. So I gotta get that deck on. It's just a loose laid floating deck for the winter. I'm not gonna do much to change it in the spring other than nail it down and just make sure it's level. It's always gonna be free floating from the structure of the porch uprights in the roof. So it'll do a good enough job for the winter, keeping it mud free in the spring in particular. So anyway, so after that's done, like I said, tomorrow, which won't appear in this video, but tomorrow I'll put that new door on. I'll frame that door in to make that completely airtight. Frame the outside of the door, frame the outside of that window, then that wall is 100% done on the inside, weather tight, all the chinking's done. And then I'm inside for the rest of the winter pretty well, other than building that porch, which I'll do on some nice days, probably January thaw or something. But other than that, I can finish this floor this week. I can start the table and a bench, trimming out all the other windows, and then building railings and a new ladder to go up to the loft, and building a bed up there with some storage, like rodent-proof storage. So yeah, lots and lots of projects for at least the next month or two. And I'm just gonna keep doing cool stuff and finish that door like I keep mentioning. See what I mean about doing a bunch of stone projects around here? Plenty of building material. There's the soil, that brown stuff, that's all just decomposed leaf litter for the most part. actually level. It's pretty close to level too, and it's actually slight slope that way, which is what I want. Ground slopes from that way to that way, from there to here. So I want a slight slope headed that way, including a couple of trenches I'm going to have to make underneath for all the water and rain that goes through the deck. I don't want it collecting in here and can't get out. So 2 drainage channels going out the end. Other than that, I'm happy enough with that for the winter. Like I said, these things will move around a little bit, and I'm going to leave it free floating, and then in the spring I'll just pull the boards off, slide them off because I'm not going to fasten them. Lift these, torch them, so that Sugi band, the wood preservation technique in this video up here. Charcoal these things up, put them back down. Charcoal the 2x4s as well, burn them, and then seal them with linseed oil. Anyway, happy to get this done. It probably seems odd, I'm jumping around all over the place, trying to beat winter. You see me do some chinking, and then I was rushing to get the roof done, the outhouse. I got just enough fall, I think, to get all the things I needed to get done. I wouldn't have done this porch like I said, except I wanted that log in there so that I can build a porch over the winter. I'm just going to flatten that out a little bit. Hopefully that doesn't freeze in so I can pull that up and burn it as well. But I'm just going to put a flat spot right here with some upright posts on either end, and then I'll have a roof coming down sloping from a higher section up there, and I'm going to have to do some fancy configuration around here so I can make it wide enough. That's going to slope down this way, and I'll put a gutter probably across at least part of it, maybe all of it. I'd like to hand carve a wood gutter out of with that gutter adze. So that's the plan. But I wanted to get that done so I have something to work on over the winter too, right? So I could have waited till spring to do the porch, but come January or February or March, I'd like to do the porch. The sooner the better to get a roof on there and stop snow from accumulating there, and so I can get the firewood back in here. I'm hoping to get one more warm day too that I can chink that outside of the wall. And I might even be able to tarp it in actually. Yeah, put a tarp in there, open the door and the window, let the heat out, and then chink that wall. Yeah, I'm doing that for sure actually. I just thought of that now. Just feels good to be sitting out here. Weather's still not too bad out. December 5th, and here I am sitting on the front porch of the cabin already. Feels good. But tomorrow morning I'm gonna wake up and this will be all snow. Snow and too cold to sit outside, and the lake will probably be half frozen over. Before I start working today, I just wanted to get something off my mind quickly, and I'm putting it at the beginning of the video because it's something I feel strongly about this week, and I'd like to share it before moving on to the long, slow, boring process of chinking the cabin. So this morning I wanted to talk directly to my daughters, my nephews and nieces, and all the kids and young adults out there that are watching this video and who have been watching my channel and watching the cabin build. I read a funny meme or however you want to say it. French Canadian in me wants to say meme. And what it said was, don't be disappointed in yourself, that's your parents' job. Thought that was funny, ironic, and sad all at the same time because it appears to be true. But what I want to say to my daughters is that it's not disappointment. It's not disappointment. I can never be disappointed in you. What sometimes looks like disappointment is actually just concern and a wish for you to lead a happy and successful life and not make the mistakes that we made, not make any mistakes, and try to protect you from all the pain and suffering that's out there in the world. And that's all it is. It's not anything about control or wanting to instill our values or opinions on you. It's simply about trying to protect you and make sure you have a happy life. And I do feel guilt, and I think our generation feels guilt over the way we raised you. We grew up, I think, maybe having things a little bit too easy, and then we passed it down to you, and we made your life even easier than we had it. You know, when you complain about chores, we either did it ourselves or we hired a housekeeper. When you were hungry, instead of making a healthy meal, we took you to McDonald's. When you were bored on a long car drive, instead of singing songs or telling stories or playing games, looking out the window, we bought you a Nintendo DS. When you were bored at home, we got you computers and video games. Instead of preparing you for the real world, we made life easier for you. We thought that was the answer. We thought giving you everything you wanted and doing all your work for you and defending you from your teachers and your classmates and all the hurt out in the world, we thought that was helping you, not realizing it was doing a disservice, that we weren't preparing you for your life. We weren't preparing you for the hardships in life, and we weren't preparing you for the difficult world that we live in, and difficult society we live in, and the challenges that your generation has to face that even we didn't. You know, for the first time in history, our kids, my kids, and your generation are going to have less than us. You have less fresh water, less clean water, less clean air, less healthy food, less healthy soils to grow your food in. There's less fish in the oceans. There's less game in the forest. There's less forest, period. There's less wetlands because we've paved over them to put new stores in and new restaurants and new developments. There's less global stability because we've created a world where we're at conflict over another. We're fighting over the last remaining resources. And those resources are getting thinner, less abundant, and our population is growing. We're at 7 billion people on this planet now, and within your lifetime we're going to be at 9 or 10 billion people. And we are on a finite planet where the resources are limited. Now, I don't mean to scare you with all of this information, and I'm sure you know it, but it's just different. When you think about it, royalty of the past would love to have had the luxuries that we have, like indoor plumbing and electricity. If it's dark out, you flip a switch and the light comes on. If you want water, you turn on the tap and water comes out. If you want food, you go to the grocery store and you buy whatever you want. Or you pick up the phone and order something in. These luxuries that we take for granted these days weren't available to people of the past, and not too long in the distant past. But we take those for granted and we complain that we don't have enough. It's unprecedented. Things are going backwards a little bit. I think it's a challenge, and it's an exciting challenge for your generation to fix the mistakes that my generation and the preceding generations made before us. And that is to stop consuming things in excess and be more efficient and be simpler and happier with a simpler life, and work together to make a better world. And we're passing this torch on to you, and we hope you do a better job than we did. It's time for you to inspire us. It's time for you to set a good example for us, because we haven't done such a great job setting an example for you. Now, the people that are watching this channel typically, I think, are maybe the exception and are preparing for, you know, being more self-reliant. And I think that's what it comes down to. We need a self-reliant generation to pick up that torch and stop relying on somebody else to fix the problems out there. So I look forward to seeing what you do with this torch and how you make this world better, not only for us, but for you and your kids and the following generations. This is not practical for most people, but I think for me, it's setting an example for myself and you, my daughters, and all the other people out there watching this, to not snap your fingers and expect to have something appear before you, or expect to get everything you want just because you ask for it. Things take time, they take hard work, and if we want good results and we want greater rewards, then we need to sometimes take that path of least resistance and turn that down and follow the path of more resistance, where we put more work and time and effort into something, but the rewards are greater. Been doing nothing but chinking for 4 days, and it's just a slow, tedious job that doesn't have much reward as I'm doing it. At the end of the day, I'm going to end up with a warm cabin as a result. And I hope it's making you think a little bit more about what you're doing with your life and what your future plans are, and that it helps you on your path to self-reliance. Alright, thanks for watching that video, guys. I mentioned I wanted to give some personal shout outs to some of the younger people that are watching the video. I'm going to have to read this because there's a long list. I appreciate everybody, and I hope I didn't miss anybody. So I'll start out with so George and his son Darren Rosato from New York City, Jacqueline the artist from Connecticut, Richard Lumpkin's dog, Kelsey, a 16-year-old from Arizona, Jada, who's 9, Briar Waddington, who's 6 years old, and her mom Katie Legier, Jack, who's 10, and his mom Carol Glover. And Samuel is 4, and Judah, who's 2, and their dad Theo. Rustin Hodges and his 2 daughters, ages 8 and 10. Daniel Kincaid and his son. Audrey, who's 2, and Kirsten, who's 6. Joshua Lund is 15. Oh, this guy, Joshua, very nice. He's 15 years old, and he said, "I'm a kid, I'm 15, but give a shout out to one of the younger kids bonding and learning with their parents. Best wishes from Utah." Thought that was very, very nice. Dan, who's 13, and his 18-year-old sister Lisa, who is generally too busy making out with her boyfriend while they're watching. And Dad, Chris from Holland. Haley, who's 8, and Audrey, who's 6, from Caledon, Ontario, and their mom Dorothy. Dorothy, who's 15, and Zoe, 13, and mom and dad. Dad's Frank. Alex, who's 21, and Hunter, 13. Caleb, 9. Ellie, 6. Lydia, 3, and mom and dad. Josh, who's 17, from Central Virginia, and he has a channel called White Oak Outdoors. Matilda, who's 7, and Austin, who's 5, from Australia, and their dad is Jason. Nora, who's 9, and W, who's 40. Serena, who's 4, and Dad Christopher Chung from Quebec. With the wind picking up, so the audio might not have been the greatest in that last part of it. So there's Anna, 9, and Price, 10, and their Uncle Joe. Shay Phillips. Levi Walters, who's 13 years old. Lily, who's 6, and Logan, who's 13, and I think it's their mom and dad, James and mom, Diana J. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's your generation who are taking over this world, and I hope you leave it a better place than we did for you, and I look forward to seeing what you're going to do with it. I look forward to seeing the self-reliance skills that you guys put into action. So thanks for watching this video, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you up here at the cabin again next week. Take care. Have a great week.